Hey everybody, TomBerkenmeyer.com is my website, but I'm going to talk about guns and checks and these kids and what they're doing right now, and how for the first time ever this is actually going to lead to something forward and changey like, and at the end of the day, how about less people dying from gun violence, or how about all forms of violence, just less people? How about that? Hi Autumn, hi Bunny. Bring them on camera. Ooh, I can bring people on camera. I did that earlier today when I made my chocolate orgasm shake. Hey, Shannon. And 5 other people that joined. Nice to see you. So I'll start and chime in. I love conversation. Engage me at any point, okay? I agree, they are amazing. Damn right they are, Autumn. So I want to talk about what we can do. I mean, real stuff that we can do that we're shown the way by these kids. I want to perpetuate this so it becomes real and less people die from violence needlessly. I also want to debunk some myths and some concerns that people have, and also just some outright egregious things that some people are saying that most people are going to be on the same page with how you and I think, which is really great. Okay, so first of all, spread the knowledge. Absolutely, Autumn. So 97% of the population, thanks to these kids, because it was never this high before, but 97% of the population nowadays wants a universal background check and close the gun show loophole. 97%, that leaves only 3% who think it's okay to leave the gun show loophole open and to not require a universal background check. That 3%, all that's left is the leadership of the NRA, gun manufacturers, and then there's some crazy constituents, maybe 1 out of 100, who believe that it's okay to leave those things open. And so, that 1 or 2 out of 100 people of the constituents that aren't being paid or bribed, you know, like the politicians are bribed by corporate NRA and gun manufacturers, the 1 or 2 constituents that have the same opinion are especially bizarre to me personally. They are especially bizarre to me personally because they're not on take, there's no bribes happening, but still somehow they hold those positions, just 1 or 2 out of 100. And I think there's a mix of 2 things between the people. That is, number one, incredibly dumb. I hate to say that, but people that have zero objectivity in their biases has totally overrun any objectivity they could have had. So who knows? Maybe that's why. And the other reason why I think somebody held that position is, I don't know, some ulterior agenda that I don't really understand, because they're not on the take, they're not being bribed. So why would they hold that position? I have no idea. It's really bizarre to me. So the politicians, however, they're bribed, and so when you have 97% of a population that wants something and Congress will not do it, our Congress is now an enemy of the people. And if 97% doesn't constitute an enemy of the people, then nothing does. I mean, does it take 98%, 99%, 100%? I don't know. But Congress is an enemy of the people. And the only thing that explains that is the enormous tax they get from their bribers. And those kids, in large numbers, are the only groups of people today that are smart enough to connect the dots between the bribe money and politics and the politicians that are bribed. They're the only ones smart enough to make that connection in large numbers. Autumn says, in Indiana, person-to-person sales do not require background checks or permits. Chicago gets from states like us where it goes all too easy. Autumn, I was planning on talking to that, so I'll talk about that right now. So check this out. One of the arguments that's made for people that believe in, not changing any of the gun laws and keeping legislation the same. We don't need new laws, we need morality. We do need morality, but we need gun laws too. So, a great example is Chicago. We'll take the south side of Chicago. You go across jurisdictional lines from the south side of Chicago. South side of Chicago, strict gun laws, gun-free zone. No, there's lots of guns. But you cannot buy a gun in Chicago, basically. It's just flat out illegal. Most gun crimes are in Chicago. Chicago has more gun violent deaths than just about anywhere in America. And they have the toughest gun laws. So if you don't care about context, some people don't, they'll make the argument, see what happens? You got the toughest gun laws in the country and you got the worst gun violence in the country. And they draw the conclusion, therefore, the more gun laws you have, the more gun violence you have, because criminals don't care about the law. And that's true, criminals don't care about the law. But here's why that argument is terrible if you take it into context. Take Chicago, for example. You go across jurisdictional lines where it's pretty much the Wild West. You pick up a gun, no checks, no background, no nothing. Pick it up, just get the cash, exchange for the gun, and you cross back over that jurisdictional line and bang, 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 you shoot people up, and you got terrible gun violence in those places. That's why, when you put it in context, the argument that more gun laws, more gun violence, therefore loosen the gun laws will be less violence, that doesn't stack up because it's empirically not true. So that's why we need to get rid of the lines and have that. That's exactly why we need to have that universal background check and to close the gun show loophole. That way there's no lines for somebody to cross and then bring it back over those lines again where the gun laws are tight and start shooting everybody up. Does that make sense to you guys out there? Hi, Chuck. Hi, Julie. Hi, Kara. Hi, Corey. Does that make sense to you guys? Maybe there's somebody here who's listening to that who believed, maybe you're somebody who always thought, yeah, the tougher the gun laws, the more gun violence, so obviously you got to loosen the gun laws. Point to Chicago. Chicago has the toughest gun laws in the world, and there's more gun violence out there than anywhere in the world. So we don't need more laws. I mean, did anybody think that way, and then you hear this new information and maybe you've changed your mind now? You just cross jurisdictional lines outside of Chicago into Indiana, right next door, pick up your guns, no checks and balances. You come back and you shoot everybody up in Chicago. Therefore, you see the most gun violence in some place like Chicago. So if you heard that now and you're changing your mind about what you thought, then great. Congratulations. I admire that a great deal. So, and that brings me to another point. Some people will hear that and they're not swayed one way or the other. It's like, I'll take you through it. And I used to be this person, but I heard something contraindicative to what I believed, and I changed my mind because I don't want to work backward from a conclusion. That's really dumb to work backward from a conclusion. I mean, that's the epitome of being stupid and not tapping into your critical faculties. But we've got this amazing brain as humans, and some people tap into their critical faculties, and some people just won't. Some people go based on gut, just entirely faith-based, and I don't mean by religion faith-based. By faith-based, I mean you have a gut feeling about something, and there's 1,000 studies, 1,000 examples in the world that's contraindicative to the gut feeling that you have, but you're not willing to change your gut feeling, even though you took in this new information that's contraindicative to it. Well, now you're a faith-based clown. Some people are. And so they're faith-based, not a religious thing, just they're going with their gut. Even if everything in the world proves that their gut is wrong, they're still going to go with their gut, and that's absurd. Some people are like that. So me, on the other hand, I used to think a long time ago, it's like, I looked at Chicago all the time. Wow, look at Chicago, top gun laws in the country, and they have the most gun violence. Well, obviously Chicago is stupid, and they need to loosen the gun laws and maybe curb some of that gun violence. And then I learned something new. I learned, oh my God, there's these jurisdictional lines. You literally just about set foot across the jurisdictional line from Chicago. Now you're in another jurisdiction where you got anything you want, no facts, nothing. You come back over into Chicago and you shoot everything up. I learned that. That's contraindicative to everything I believed about all those nonsensical things that some people still believe about the gun laws don't do anything. So then I changed my mind. I went from, wow, they don't need to loosen the gun laws. We need a universal, on the federal level, we need a universal background check and close the gun show loophole so that there are no more lines and nobody can cross a line to get something easier and come back and kill everybody. So I evolved my position. And so constituents, we're a mix of both. Some of us will get new information that's contraindicative to everything we believed, and we'll change our position. We'll evolve as human beings, right? And then there's other people, they just stick to their gut. Even if everything in the world says they're wrong empirically. I'm not talking about a belief or an agreement or a disagreement. It's just you're wrong if you're wrong. And some people will hold true to it, and they don't care about context, new information. And that's where it's a little bit maddening. But this is extremely uplifting that 97% of the population now wants a universal background check and close the gun show loophole. That way we get rid of these lines. Places like Chicago and other places that have really tight gun laws, you won't be able to set foot out and go into another jurisdictional line, buy something, a gun without any checks, come back into some place where they got those checks and balances and shoot everybody up. We get rid of those lines by mandating a universal background check from the federal level and getting rid of the gun hole loophole, and those lines are gone, and we chip away at the gun violence. So another argument is made that, let's see here, it will never fix the problem. And you're right, it will never go away 100%. But what if over 30,000 deaths a year. What if we cut that in half? Next year, it's 15,000 deaths by gun, just from a universal background check and closing the gun show loophole. Isn't that something? That makes it worth it. That's a check and balance. Now, here's another problem that some people have when they hear checks and balance. They think it's synonymous with a government control. We're going to take away your guns. No, in my opinion, this part's opinionated. No rational person is calling for a government takeover or to take away everybody's guns. In my opinion, rational people, which happens to be most people in this instance, in my opinion, rational people are calling for checks and balances. They want to protect people's Second Amendment right to own a gun, but with checks and balances. And right now, 97% of the population wants a check and balance in the form of a universal background check and close the gun show loophole to get rid of those jurisdictional lines. And we can't get it because Congress is on the take of legalized bribe money from the NRA and gun manufacturers. Now, some people believe that all that money has nothing to do with influencing their decision. Politicians routinely switch positions, and almost every single time it's in exact alignment with what their donors want. You follow the money, their positions change. Politicians are fickle. They're not principled, most of them. Most politicians are not principled. They follow the money of their donors. In recent history, we actually have donors on record saying, you do as you're told or the piggy bank dries up. And the politicians say, yes, sir, and they do it. So for the 1 out of 1,000 people that believes that legalized bribe money, for the 1 out of every 1,000 people that believes that money in politics does not influence our political leaders, they are among the most naive people that's ever lived. I mean, a 3-year-old is not as naive as the person that believes that money in politics doesn't influence their decisions. So thankfully, the overwhelming majority of almost everybody knows that money in politics is a form of legalized bribery, and it does in fact influence their decisions. And when you have something that's 97% popular and we can't get it, that's on full display. Congress is an enemy of the people. When you have something 97% popular and they go against it, they're an enemy of the people, and it's the legalized bribery in politics. If they weren't bribed, we would have had it at 80%, 70, even 60% we would have had it. But it's at 97%. That's egregious. That's obnoxious. So anyone thinks that private money in politics doesn't influence their decision, they're just the most naive people on the planet. And that's still putting it lightly. There's no words that can describe how naive those people are, but they exist. And I have at least 1 or 2 of those friends. I don't know. It's nuts. Okay, scrolling up to read some comments. The common factor of common sense. 97% can't be denied. You're right, Autumn. Right now we're denied, but there's a midterm coming up and a regular election cycle after that. And now we have people running, 51 people. That's 51 people right now running for various House and Senate seats who openly reject all legalized bribe money, and they want to amend the Constitution to bar it as a matter of law so that we have 100% publicly financed clean elections. That number grew in the course of 1 year from 1 person to 51 people. This is the king of all friends. This means that we no longer have to exercise the strategy of voting for the lesser of 2 evils. We have some to vote for instead of against. Even if I disagree with somebody on other issues, the one issue that they have to be for is getting all private money out of politics. And I will vote for that person, especially when the other person is taking legalized bribe money. So it's our job now to show up and find out who they are. Google Open Secrets Money in Politics. Open Secrets Money in Politics. Google it. Find out who is not on the take. Find out who's bribed and who is not bribed, and vote for the people that are not bribed. They're the only ones that represent you. The bribed do not. If you think a bribed politician represents you, you're more naive than a 2-year-old. So find out who's bribed and who isn't. And thankfully, almost every single one of you are on the same page. This is something that's truly bipartisan among constituents of Republicans, Democrats, and the center, and independents, and everybody in every major group wants the money out of politics. So this is our chance to get it out. We elect the majority of these 51 people this midterm that's running on a platform of getting all the money out of politics, then we win, and we will have a government that represents us. You know what I'm saying? And just curious, anybody watching this, after you heard me give, the Chicago example, and the more gun laws equals or doesn't equal less or more gun violence, if there's anybody here that still believes that gun laws don't make a difference, I'd love to hear about it and what your rationale is. Probably a morbid curiosity, I guess. And here's another thing I'll give you. There are 150 odd studies and demonstrations that show that better checks and balances does show gun violence. There's over 130 studies that show that, every single one of them. There's 0 studies that shows that better checks and balances doesn't make a difference. 0 studies that show it. But there's still some people, thank goodness it's only 1 or 2 out of 100, that believe new gun laws don't make a difference. And there's some people that believe the earth is flat. And they're just objectively wrong. Now, if there were no studies, nothing on demonstration to show one way or the other, and there's a void to fill with a gut feeling, that would be understandable. But when you have a gut feeling and there is evidence, hundreds of pieces of evidence that shows information contraindicative to your gut feeling, and you still hold on to your gut feeling, then your bias has totally overrun any objectivity that you could have had. And like I said, thank God that's only 1 or 2 out of every 100 people. Oh, I'm so grateful about that. But those 1 or 2, man, they still exist. And they'll hear something that's contraindicative to what they think, and they'll still think it anyway, working backward from a conclusion, relinquishing all their critical thinking faculties. And those are typically the people that will say, we don't need gun laws, we need morality. And these are people that refuse to hold on to 2 thoughts in their head at the same time. We need morality and new gun legislation. Morality is used by politicians who are bribed as a diversion from having to talk about new gun legislation. When a constituent does it, it's not a diversion. They're just anti-critical thinking and won't hold more than one idea in their head at the same time. It's really a dumb position to take. I mean, if they could argue it based on something that backs it up, something empirical instead of a gut feeling or faith-based, that would be something worth listening to. But there's literally 0 evidences of anything that backs that up. And 1 or 2 people out of 100 still will not change their mind. But thankfully, they are so over-dominated by everyone else that it's imminent. We will have universal background, and we will have the gun show loophole closed eventually. Sooner or later, it's going to happen because there's too many people that want it. So this isn't going to last forever. Like I said, there's a midterm coming up with over 50 people running for various House and Senate seats who openly reject all bribe money, and they ridicule their opponent for accepting bribe money. That's highly encouraging. So it's up to you and me now to find out who these people are. Open Secrets. Google Open Secrets, Money in Politics. Find out who's being bribed, who's not being bribed, and vote for the people not being bribed. Let's see here. Society needs laws that protect the masses. For us to live in peace, we need order and balance. It's true. Absolutely. So here's something interesting. When people say, we don't need new gun laws, we need morality, we need both new gun legislation and morality. But by that argument, why have laws against anything? People want to kill people, with whatever. Having laws, we can prosecute people that do break them, and if there's evidence to suggest someone is about to break the law, we can prevent it from even happening. So we need gun laws. We need it for those 2 reasons alone. And also, going back to over 130 studies show that better checks and balances chips away at gun violence, and there's not one study that shows the opposite. I mean, all those reasons. So, yeah, there you go. See if there's more comments for me to read now. The Age of Aquarius begins with universal law. Like that. Cool. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Beverly. Colleen. Hi, Rob. Citizens United needs taken out. I agree. These children are also teaching us the power of voting because they are prepared to vote when it's their turn. Their parents will also vote. It will ignite the change that is needed. Yes, Autumn. A lot of those kids aren't quite 18 yet, but they're like 17 years old. 16, 17, by this coming midterm election, most of them are going to be 18, and they will be voting. And then the next regular election cycle, all of them will be voting that are in high school now. That's pretty exciting. And their parents and all these people affected, as well as, the 97% of the population that actually cares about an issue in solidarity How great is that? So our bribed politicians, they're in solidarity with their donors. They're not in solidarity with us. They're an enemy of us, an enemy of the people. 97% of the population they vote against. They're an enemy of us, but they're in complete solidarity with their donors. Some people say politicians are not stand-up people. I think they are stand-up people. They stand up for their donors all the time against us. It's true. Let's see if there's any more comments here. Get money out of politics. Yep, right on. I haven't had anybody video or that did with anything out of common factor or common sense. 97 can't be denied. Yep. Yeah, there's literally nobody. Exactly, get rid of the gray area and inform people. Yes, evolution. Nobody has disagreed with anything that I've said so far. In other threads, people have, but they're very far in between. So there are no need for guns. I don't know what you mean by that, Ryan Jerkins. Just so you know, there's no rational person. You probably just got to miss it, but there's no rational person, in my opinion, who's arguing to take guns away from people and to control and this and that. Here's another maddening thing. I argue for checks and balances all the time. Checks and balances. It's constitutional. Every one of our rights in our Constitution, all of our amendments have built-in checks and balances. So I'm always calling for checks and balances right now with our Second Amendment. And so some people, thank goodness, only maybe 1 out of 100 people, some people, when they hear checks and balances, in their mind they hear government take over, take all the guns away, complete control. And it's like, I really don't know what to say to those people. It's like, did you hear I said checks and balances, or is your bias so bad? Has your bias consumed your brain so badly that no matter how much someone says checks and balances, for some reason you're going to hear control and take away? I don't get it. I'm not saying that's you, Ryan. I don't really know what your position is. But about 1 out of 100 people, I swear to God, they hear checks and balances, and no matter what, their bias is so bad, they perceive control and take away the guns. So no, checks and balances. We need better checks and balances. It's in every right that we have. There's no such thing as an unlimited freedom. It doesn't exist. All of our freedoms are limited by checks and balances. I think there are many who need not own guns. Absolutely. So if we have better checks and balances in the books, we can chip away at that number of people who do own guns who shouldn't own guns. We can chip away at that number, and at the end of the day, there's less gun violence, and less violence of all kinds, really. If people understood the basic concept of society, they would realize we are in this together and must stand together for the good of society. Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing about people. We're hardwired to be imperfect, and people have all kinds of irrationalities of different stripes, different kinds, and different degrees and different intensities. So knowing that people are hardwired to mess up and be irrational, and some of us to be criminals and to be killers, right? That's a perfect reason to have checks and balances with all of our laws, including the Second Amendment. Some people will say criminals will not follow the law. Therefore, it makes no sense to have gun laws. I went into that a lot earlier, but I have a new thought now. Well, where the hell was I going with that? Some people will say criminals... Where the fuck was I going with that? Criminals don't follow the law, so why have gun laws? Oh, okay, I know. That's a perfect reason to have gun laws, because criminals are not going to follow the law. Some people are going to pick up a gun, kill people with it because it gets them off, and they don't care about the law. They're going to disregard the law. What a perfect reason to have new gun laws. That could increase the likelihood that person is not going to be able to get a firearm and have that opportunity to start picking people off, right? Isn't that a perfect reason to have better checks and balances? Because there are criminals that don't care about the law, and people are imperfect and irrational, and there's killers out there that want to pick up a gun and start shooting people. Isn't that a perfect reason to have better checks and balances? When somebody makes that argument, gosh, I just hear an argument in favor of better checks and balances. Yeah, criminals don't care about the law. That's why we need better checks and balances. Whether it's, stealing from people, killing people, committing extortion, inciting riots and violence and whatever else. Those are exact reasons why we need better checks and balances against all those things. Right? Right. Let's see if there's more comments. I think I'm okay. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Lindsay. All right, I'm all caught up in the comments. Does anyone else have something to bring up? Something to engage me with? While I wait for somebody to engage me with something, wait, here's one. Yeah, I'm a progressive that lives in Indiana. My daily life involves spreading knowledge to the uninformed, but I do because I care. Religion is used as a tool here. Some think having a gun is a God-given right. Who knows? Having a gun, I think, can be a very cool thing. It can be a very deadly thing. That's why we need checks and balances to regulate that. It's all over the Constitution. And the reason we don't have checks and balances with the Second Amendment and other things, to be honest with you, is because our politicians are bribed not to. So we need to vote them out. There's over 50 people running for various House and Senate seats right now for this upcoming midterm that are not bribed. They're open about it, and they ridicule their opponent for being bribed. So it's up to us now to elect a representative democracy, because now we have that who's running for it. So we need to do our part and show up and support that. And I have a prediction to make. Midterms, generally not a lot of people show up for, but because now we have over 50 people to vote for that does represent us, I predict this could be a record-setting turnout for midterm votes. And I'm going to be part of it. I hope you guys are too. I had a friend earlier say that the flow of money in politics, I've got it backwards. Donors find politicians that already believe what they advocate, and so they find them, they give their money to them, and it doesn't influence their decision making. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, this is, one of my friends. I think my friend, well, first of all, he's about probably 1 out of 100 people that believes that, but that's an incredibly naive position to take, especially when you look at all the swings that all the politicians, most of them make, and the swings in their positions is almost every single time in alignment with what their donors want. So it's incredibly naive to believe that money in politics doesn't influence their decisions. It creates, by default, it's a conflict of interest. And we're talking about conflicts of interest that result in income inequality and people dying from different forms of violence and polluting our environment and stuff that actually affects the entire world, not just our own country. So I'm very grateful that maybe just 1 out of 100 people believe so foolishly and naively that the private money doesn't influence their decisions. I'm so glad that's far and few between within constituents that show up to vote. Hi, Linda. Hi, Courtney. Okay, is there anything else anybody wants to engage me with? An idea? Hi, Linda. Thanks for saying hi. And disagreements are welcome too. They really are. One of my friends earlier today, we were going back and forth a little bit in a thread. I kept having to repeat myself over and over again because she wasn't grasping the concept of checks and balances. For some reason, she kept hearing control and government takeover. And it's always checks and balances, and she just wasn't getting it. So I'm grateful that most of you, almost all of you, I mean, an overwhelming majority of you, recognize the difference between checks and balances and control and a takeover. And she was arguing, we don't need new gun laws, we just need to teach morality. And I'm like, yeah, morality is cool, let's have both, not one or the other. We're humans with human brains. We're one of the only species, maybe the only species, that can hold more than one thought in our head at the same time. So let's exercise those critical faculties and hold more than one thought. Up morality as well as better checks and balances. so we can chip away at the gun violence and other violence. Hi, Lorna. All right, I think I'm going to end this. It looks like you guys are all out of engagements with me. Damn, thanks for the hearts, Linda. I appreciate that. I think you've sent 100 of them over by now. It's better than the like button. So this thing has a 20-second delay. I'll wait a few seconds. If nobody else has anything engaging to say, and disagreements are welcome. But I'll tell you this about disagreements. When someone disagree with what a fact is, like, for example, the analogy of the planet is a great one. Some people believe that the Earth is flat, and they disagree with someone who says that it's a globe shape. And that's not an issue of an agreement or a disagreement. That's the difference between an objective observer and a faith-based observer. And not religion faith. I'm not talking about that. I'm just, by faith, I mean somebody that doesn't care about evidence and they just go with the gut feeling. Even when the proof is in the pudding against their gut feeling, they still go with their gut feeling. So when it comes to, the flat earthers, they disagree with people believing the Earth is a globe. It's not a matter of agreement or disagreement. Some people, well, in that instance, almost everyone is objectively observing, yep, the Earth is a globe. And some people are looking at it through faith-based lens, which says that it's flat. Same thing with all these studies about better checks and balances. There's over 130 some studies and demonstrations throughout the world that show better checks and balances do chip away at gun violence. There's not one study. This is 100%. Not many things are 100%, but this one is. There's not one study anywhere in the world. There's one demonstration that shows the opposite. All of them show better checks and balances with gun laws, reduces gun violence. Every single one of them. It's 100%. And there's still some people that will say, new gun laws, checks and balances, it doesn't make a difference. That's not a disagreement. That just means that person who's only, thankfully, about 1% of the population, that person is just empirically, factually, objectively wrong. Just like the person that believes Earth is flat is wrong. They're looking at it through faith-based lens instead of objectivity. The bias has totally overridden their objectivity and their critical faculties. It's crazy. Shannon. So this is how we chip away at the gun violence. Vote for politicians who are not on the take of legalized bribe money. And these kids from Florida, oh my God, they're the only ones in large numbers connecting the dots between the bribe money in politics and the politicians that are bribed to do the bidding of their donors against the will of the American people. So it's on us now to show up. Over 50 people running for various House and Senate seats this midterm. Google search Open Secrets Money in Politics. Find out who the unbribed are from the bribed and vote for the ones that are not bribed. So this is our chance to get away from a lesser of two evils strategy. Sounds good, doesn't it? I'm going to go now. Get on with my day. I wanted to make this video. I thought it would be fun. And it was fun. So I'll talk to you later. Bye for now, everybody. And my website, if you'd like to see more of how I think about different things, is TomBerkenmeyer.com. Just like it's spelled here on social media, TomBerkenmeyer.com. Take care, everybody. Mwah.